జనరల్ నాలెడ్జ్ లో మన విజ్ఞానాన్ని మరింత పెంచేందుకు టీసాట్ ప్రత్యేక కార్యక్రమం చేపట్టింది. పలు అంశాలపై మనకున్న తెలివితేటల్ని పరీక్షించుకోవడం, తెలియని అంశాలపై అవగాహన పెంచుకునేందుకు ఈ కార్యక్రమం రూపకల్పన చేసింది. ఈ ప్రత్యేక క్విజ్ కార్యక్రమంలో మీరు పాల్గొనాలనుకుంటున్నారా? మీ విజ్ఞానాన్ని మా ద్వారా ప్రపంచానికి పంచాలనుకుంటున్నారా? అయితే మీ ప్రశ్నలు మరియు ఆప్షన్స్ మా టీసాట్ ఛానల్ పై నేరుగా సంధించండి లేదా ఈమెయిల్ కు పంపించగలరు. ఫస్ట్ క్వశ్చన్ ఆన్ యువర్ స్క్రీన్. Which among the following temperature scale is based upon absolute zero? Option A, Celsius. Option B, Fahrenheit. Option C, Kelvin. Option D, Rankine. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option C, Kelvin. Any temperature scale having absolute zero for its 0 point is termed as absolute temperature scale or thermodynamic scale. In the International System of Units, the Kelvin scale is the standard for all scientific temperature measurements. Second question on your screen. Indian Army has developed which mobile app for soldiers to track promotions and postings? Option A, Soldier app. Option B, Hamraz app. Option C, Army Cloud app. Option D, Track Post app. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option B, Hamraz app. The Indian Army has developed a mobile application, Hamraz, through which serving soldiers can track details like postings and promotions. Through the Hamraz app, soldiers can also view their monthly salary slips and the Form 16 and also download them. Third question on your screen. Yellow revolution is related to which crop production? Option A, pulses. Option B, oilseeds. Option C, sunflower. Option D, honey. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option B, oilseeds. The revolution launched in 1986-87 to increase the production of edible oil, especially mustard and sesame seeds, to achieve self-reliance is known as the Yellow Revolution. Sam Pitroda is known as the father of the Yellow Revolution in India. Fourth question on your screen. Which city is known as the coal capital of India? Option A, Ranchi. Option B, Dhanbad. Option C, Bokaro. Option D, Zaria. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option B, Dhanbad. Dhanbad has some of the largest coal mines in India and is called the coal capital of India. The city is surrounded by 112 coal mines with a total production of 27.5 million tons. Fifth question on your screen. Where is the headquarters of East Central Railways located? Option A, Kolkata. Option B, Bilaspur. Option C, Allahabad. Option D, Hazipur. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option D, Hazipur. Hazipur is the headquarters and largest city of Vaishali district of the state of Bihar in India. Hazipur is the 16th most populous city of Bihar, besides being the second fastest developing city next to Patna. Sixth question on your screen. Statue of Equality at Hyderabad features which Bhakti saint? Option A, Ramanujacharya. Option B, Vallabhacharya. Option C, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Option D, Madhavacharya. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option A, Ramanujacharya. The Statue of Equality, also referred to as the Ramanuja statue, is a statue of the 11th century Vaishnava Ramanuja located on the premises of Chinnajiya Trust at Muchintal, Hyderabad. It is the second tallest sitting statue in the world. Seventh question on your screen. In which year nationalization of SBI subsidiaries took place? Option A 1950, Option B 1955, Option C 1959, Option D 1965. Your time starts now. The correct answer is Option C 1959. In 1959, State Bank of India Act was passed. As per the Act, 7 subsidiary banks of the State Bank of India were nationalized as a major process of nationalization. 8th question on your screen. Which noble gas is used in radiotherapy? Option A neon, Option B argon, Option C radon, Option D xenon. Your time starts now. The correct answer is Option C radon. Radon is a colorless and odorless gas. It is chemically inert but radioactive. Radon decays into radioactive polonium and alpha particles. This emitted radiation made radon useful in cancer therapy. 9th question on your screen. The first chairperson of the National Green Tribunal was Option A Justice A.S. Naidu, Option B Justice Lokeshwar Singh Panta, Option C Justice Markande Kajju, Option D Justice A.K. Ganguly. Your time starts now. The correct answer is Option B Justice Lokeshwar Singh Panta. The chairperson of the NGT is a retired judge of the Supreme Court headquartered in New Delhi. On 18th October 2010, Justice Lokeshwar Singh Panta became its first chairman. Last and final question. 10th question on your screen. Who is the winner of the 2021 International Booker Prize? Option A David Diop, Option B Douglas Stewart, Option C Margaret Atwood, Option D Bernardine Evaristo. Your time starts now. The correct answer is Option A David Diop. David Diop is a French novelist and academic who specializes in 18th century French and Francophone African literature. The International Booker Prize is an international literary award hosted in the United Kingdom. The introduction of the international prize to complement the Man Booker Prize was announced in June 2004. మీ సమాధానాలను మరియు మీ అభిప్రాయాలను కామెంట్స్ రూపంలో తెలియజేయండి. మీరు టీసాట్ నుంచి ఎటువంటి కార్యక్రమాలను వీక్షించాలని అనుకుంటున్నారో ఈ క్రింది వాట్సాప్ నంబర్ ద్వారా మీ సందేశాలను పంచుకోగలరు. వాట్సాప్ నంబర్ 733 755 8051. First question on your screen. How many countries are members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in 2022? Option A 18 member states, Option B 16 member states, Option C 30 member states, Option D 49 member states. Your time starts now. The correct answer is Option C 30 member states. NATO is an international alliance that consists of 30 member states from Europe, North America and Asia. NATO is an intergovernmental military alliance among 28 European countries and 2 North American countries. Established in the aftermath of World War II, the organization implements the North Atlantic Treaty signed 4th April 1949. Second question on your screen. What software is used for augmented reality? Option A JDK, Option B AR Toolkit, Option C Abstract Window Toolkit, Option D Windows Template Library. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option B, AR Toolkit. AR Toolkit is an open source and free to use SDK available for AR development for devices on different platforms. Apart from Android and iOS, AR Toolkit is used for AR apps on Windows, Linux and OS X. Initially released in 1999, AR Toolkit has undergone various updates. Augmented reality is an enhanced version of the real physical world that is achieved through the use of digital visual elements, sound or other sensory stimuli delivered via technology. Your third question is about sports. Who will host the 2026 FIFA World Cup? Option A, Canada, Mexico and the United States. Option B, Colombia and Peru. Option C, Ghana. Option D, United Kingdom and Republic of Ireland. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option A, Canada, Mexico and the United States. Federation International, the Football Association, is an international association football competition contested by the senior men's national teams of the members of the FIFA, the sport's global governing body. The 2026 FIFA World Cup will be staged in Canada, Mexico and the United States. Football's most prestigious tournament will be played with 48 teams. Fourth question is on your screen. Which is the largest exported item among all fresh food category from India? Option A, fresh grapes. Option B, guava. Option C, fresh mangoes. Option D, betel leaves and nuts. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option A, fresh grapes. Fresh grapes is the largest exported item among all fresh food category. During 2021, the export value of fresh grapes was $314 million. During 2021, fresh grapes and other fresh fruits accounted for 92% in India's total export of fresh fruits. Fifth question is on your screen, please. India launched an initiative to bring Indians stranded in Ukraine back home. What is that initiative called? Option A, Operation Bharat. Option B, Operation Kiev. Option C, Operation Moscow. Option D, Operation Ganga. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option D, Operation Ganga. Operation Ganga is an initiative launched by the Government of India to bring back Indian citizens stranded in Ukraine. India is currently evacuating its nationals by moving them via land routes to the East European countries' neighbors, namely Romania, Hungary, Poland and Slovakia, and then flying them out from there. Sixth question. Which Indian has been conferred with the Whitley Award 2021? Option A, Nuklu Foam. Option B, Akshay Kumar. Option C, Mary Kom. Option D, Susana D'Souza. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option A, Nuklu Foam. A church worker from Nagaland has won the Whitley Award, also known as the Green Oscar, for his efforts to create a network of community-owned forests in the state and protect the rare Amur falcon. In his 40s, Nuklu Foam is the only Indian to win the prestigious award, awarded annually to individuals from the Global South by UK-based charity, the Whitley Fund for Nature this year. He has been in the conservation space for more than a decade now. Seventh question is about banking. Which of the following has become the first bank to launch the biometric-based payment system Aadhaar Pay through its network? Option A, HDFC. Option B, IDFC. Option C, Canara Bank. Option D, Axis Bank. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option B, IDFC. Infrastructure Development Finance Company IDFC Limited was established in 1997 to finance infrastructure projects in India. IDFC is a professionally managed new private sector bank in India promoted by IDFC Limited. IDFC Bank has become the India's first bank to launch the biometric based digital payment system Aadhaar Pay through its network that will allow even those without mobile phones to do cashless transactions. This question is about culture. Eighth question. How Kumbh Mela is organized in India? Option A. Every 4 years at 3 locations. Option B. Every 12 years at 4 locations. Option C. Every 3 years at 4 locations. Option D. Every 4 years at 4 locations. Your time starts now. The correct answer is Option B. Every 12 years at 4 locations. Kumbh Mela is a major pilgrimage and festival in Hinduism. It is celebrated in a cycle of approximately 12 years. To celebrate every revolution Brihaspati completes at a 4 riverbank pilgrimage site, the Allahabad, Haridwar, Nasik and Ujjain. The pilgrimage occurs 4 times every 12 years, once at each of the 4 locations. Each 12-year cycle includes the Maha Kumbh Mela at Prayag, attended by millions of people, making it the largest pilgrimage gathering around the world. Ninth question on your screen. What are the newly added teams in the IPL 2022? Option A. Jammu Chains and Gangtok Tigers. Option B. Kanpur Lions and Nasik Warriors. Option C. Kerala Titans and Pune Super Giants. Option D. Gujarat Titans and Lucknow Super Giants. Your time starts now. The correct answer is Option D. Gujarat Titans and Lucknow Super Giants.
List of the topics which we are going to deal, and I should definitely tell you that the level of topics would be very basic. They would not be boring, and they would not be dealing with the subtleties of the topics. And this is an awareness session. The objective is to inculcate some kind of an enthusiasm in the participants to pursue quantum for their careers. So with this, I would like to invite another huge contributor to this program and CEO of one of the very important organizations for Government of Telangana, Telangana Academy of Skills and Knowledge, Mr. Srikanth Sinha. He has been instrumental in establishing the skilling platforms for the state, and he has done great service for quantum and other discourses for enabling this platform to reach out to the student community. Srikanth?
Thank you, Dr. Madhav. Honorable Principal Secretary Sri Jayashanjanji, the force behind the technology revolution in Telangana itself. My colleague Dr. Madhav from Photonics Valley Corporation, Reena ji from QETCI, a partner with whom we have decided to ensure that quantum computing awareness programs are conducted across the state. And this program is also a result of a collaboration of many partners coming in together. What is most important for us today is to understand that while quantum computing has just started recently, we need to understand the basic difference between the typical binary computing that used to happen vis-a-vis the quantum computing that is the future that we are talking about. We are talking about complex problems being solved, and probably I may not be the right person, but given the small physics background that I have, I've always used to get interested in the Schrodinger's wave equation, the quantum mechanics part of it, etc. And probably my brother, who is a particle physicist, is much better to talk about the subject. However, I think it's important that all of us today understand about quantum computing, because this is the future. When we talk about quantum computing, it is estimated that about more than 1 trillion potential of quantum computing use cases will be there by 2035 itself, which is not so much in the distant future. And that's the reason, as Telangana today and Hyderabad per se is de facto the emerging technologies capital of India and slowly becoming so for Asia also, it becomes very, very important for us to ensure that we have the right kind of skilled manpower in quantum computing. As Dr. Madhav already mentioned earlier on, and Rinaji also mentioned, it is important, and this session is being planned at an awareness level so that we generate some kind of an interest amongst the faculty members, being the educators who are able to guide. As I always keep on mentioning, more than 50 to 60% of our students today in the colleges, their parents have never been to one. As educators, the onus lies on us to ensure that we are able to guide our students so that they choose the right career options. And quantum computing, and I'm sure you will realize once Rinaji does a session today, as to what kind of huge opportunity it holds and what kind of jobs are available over there. And that's the reason I want, and I would, as you already know, this also is being broadcast through the Task Okta platform, as well as the Task YouTube, as well as the Facebook pages, etc. Also, I would encourage all of you, the participants, the students who are there, the management of various colleges, the faculty members, the TPOs, to please encourage more and more students of yours to actually undergo this program. Even if they are not able to join the program live, please ask them to see the repeat telecast or the recorded videos, which will be available on all social medias, both at TSAT, at PVC, as well as at Task. But I think today, understanding quantum computing, and if people get interested, because as Dr. Madhav was reading out the various things, and he spoke about quantum machine learning, quantum cryptocurrency, and other things, I think it's a very, very interesting program, and it helps you understand the entire width of what all is covered in quantum computing. Diving deep, of course, will depend on your interest. As we said, typically, under the vision of the Honorable Minister, as well as the guidance of the Honorable Principal Secretary Jayashanjan Sir, Task will do its best to provide you all kind of opportunities so that all of you are aware about the latest emerging technologies, as well as in case if you would like to do programs. I'm sure along with PVC, this is just the beginning of it, and QETCI, we would be launching more programs and ensuring that more and more people in the state are ready and are trained resources once quantum computing companies already start establishing their bases here in Telangana. So my humble submission to all faculty members over here, all students over here is, please take advantage of this program. Do share this program and the links of the recording, etc., with other friends and colleagues of yours, so that we are able to unleash a quantum computing revolution here in the state of Telangana. With those words, happy learning to everyone and all the very best. Thank you. Over to you, Madhav.
Thank you, Srikanth. Actually, Srikanth has touched based a very, very important stream to be drawn out of this program. And thanks for that, Srikanth, when he said that this program will be followed up by intensive training courses. Like, for example, once you have become knowledgeable or aware of the quantum technologies and the opportunities they are throwing at you, you will have to be further skill yourself to become part of the quantum world, or to become the part of quantum technology industry. For that task, as he said correctly, would structure certain courses depending upon the interest levels of the participants to take further. Like, after you are aware of the concepts, you need to be skilled with subtle knowledge about the topics which interest you. Then probably you will be having a meaningful participation in the industry activity as an employee or as an entrepreneur. So thanks, Srikanth. I think we will be working the courses in consultation with the industry in that activity. Then I would like to list out exactly the comprehensive picture are the tenets of the comprehensive picture to enthuse you more. Like when Srikant said that it's a 2-bit classical computing, now the quantum computing depends upon the spin of a subatomic particle. What we are trying to do is that when a subatomic particle spins, it will have several stages, not 2 stages. And even a single stage will not be able to be identified. So how do we use that spin for computing purpose? That is the whole gamut of quantum computing. It's very, very exciting because there is nothing defined. It's indeterminate. There is some kind of indeterminacy. Indeterminacy means excitement. What could happen? Really, nobody knows. See, most of the people explain how quantum computing works or quantum phenomena works, but they, in what way they work, but they do not know the rationality behind how it works. Nobody knows. People, scientist after scientist started defining the quantum phenomena in their own words, but nothing so far could concretely establish how it is happening. And this is a huge area of exploration. This should be interesting you because now the quantum phenomena has entered into popular media as well. Now, for example, if you see the TV channels, recently there is a program called Devs. It's an 8-episode series on Star World. It's called Devs. Devs completely deals with 2 quantum approaches. One is Copenhagen interpretation of quantum, and second is many worlds interpretation of quantum. And there is a tussle between these 2 approaches because these 2 approaches started redefining the scientific principles, the physics itself, and the reality itself. So the debate is happening in the popular media as well about what exactly constitutes quantum phenomena. So this is going to be here, and we are going to hear more and more about the quantum phenomena, and we are going to get affected more and more with the quantum. Because when a quantum computer becomes desktopized, or when a quantum computer becomes as a desktop, or when quantum computer becomes mobilized in the sense that when our mobile phone starts functioning in a quantum way with quantum technology, then the whole world is going to be changed. It's not like another improved computing gadget. It will give you so much of potentiality. Everything will have to change. Now we are talking about metaverse. Metaverse in the sense that you will be having immersive experience. Now we are having a Zoom call where Srikant is available, our sir is available, Reena is available, but we are chatting. But in metaverse, we will not be feeling like this way. We will be still chatting, but if we are there in the metaverse, we will be feeling that we are in a single room. Like 3D or 4D, whatever, if you have seen. So it is to be real-time integration of the space and time. So this kind of metaverse is going to be happened with the development of quantum phenomena itself. Now, apart from popular media, the quantum phenomena has entered into the mobile world in a small sense. Like in quantum, we have 2 major disciplines, quantum computing and quantum communications. Quantum computing is developing a computer, and quantum communications is to communicate our messages through a media. Like for example, internet. We have an internet now today. Tomorrow's quantum internet is going to be completely changing the landscape. Entanglement is going to be the basis of quantum internet. We are going to have a secure network. Now anybody can hack any person's account. But in quantum internet, there is no scope of the hacking itself. Now Samsung, the Samsung I'm sorry, I dropped out. Satish, can I be heard? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, you are audible, sir.
Sorry, it's my bad. So I was trying to explain how Samsung has introduced quantum concept in the mobile phones. Like, for example, mobile phones do have their own security features, like your data should not be compromised, your call data should not be compromised. Now, Samsung is the first company which has introduced quantum protocols in the security. So if at all you communicate through that mobile of Samsung, the message will never be deciphered by anybody. So quantum is already started establishing itself in computing phenomena and the society itself. So without missing out on further developments and further applications of quantum science in our real life, I would urge all the student community and academic community or faculty to dive deep into this concept. Please stick to this 2 weeks program so that you will learn enough to generate some kind of an interest in you to participate in this quantum phenomena for your career growth as well. With this, Reenaji, would you like to add anything?
Once you finish.
I think we should invite Jayesh ji now to speak. I think you've covered it all, and I'm really very excited about the session is actually happening. And this is a great opportunity for everybody, I would say.
Now I request our Honorable Principal Secretary to deliver his chief guest address. Sir, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Greetings to all of you. I would like to, first of all, congratulate the Photonics Valley Corporation for organizing this very important webinar, addressing students, addressing faculty members. I'm grateful that Reena Dayalji from the QETCI, Mr. Shrikant Sinha from TASK, and other domain experts are participating. So as other speakers have also pointed out, quantum technologies are going to offer a very definitive computing alternative in the future. And already the trends are very visible. The kind of adoption quantum is happening in the research institutions, defense labs, in some corporates also is very, very visible. And it is only a matter of time where the adoption of quantum technologies in all walks of life is going to happen. India also needs to promote such technologies because we have missed out on several spurts of technology revolutions in the past. People have always complained about India that despite having so much of talent, we only are playing catch up. And at the most, it is considered to be a country of copy-paste kind of individuals. So this is an opportunity which we should not miss. Quantum technologies offer a very equal or a level playing field for all the countries to catch up and even lead the world. So this is a great opportunity for India. And within India, as all of us are aware, our government, the Telangana government, we have already made a head start. We are one of the few states which have started quantum programs. We have announced a 3-tier structure. We will have skilling programs, which is the purpose of today's webinar. We have also announced an incubation platform for startups and a physical ecosystem for accommodating the footprints of quantum companies. We have constituted an advisory committee also to guide us on all these 3 verticals, and some POCs have also been prepared to make some progress in each of these verticals. But when it comes to skilling, which is the foundational vertical of whatever we do, because if we want to even invite the whole world to Telangana, unless high quality skills are available, our vision or our ambition will just remain a pipe dream. Nothing will come out of it. And one of the biggest challenges that we have encountered, while it is very clear that the global trend is towards quantum, it is very, very clear that awareness levels amongst the faculty and students about quantum technologies is very low. And training in quantum concepts need to be preceded by awareness programs like these to inculcate enthusiasm amongst the potential candidates. And I'm very confident that today's webinar is going to fill this very important gap in awareness creation. And hopefully this will lead to much more demand.
It is showing that this free Zoom meeting has ended on Okta.
Can you?
But the meeting is still on the Zoom because I am watching on Zoom as well.
Can you mute others who are not speaking, please? So I'm very happy that today's program is being implemented in a very collaborative way, and many industries, many academic institutions, they are participating, and our government's institutions like TASC, Photonic Valley Corporation, are also joining hands in rolling out this program. We are always in the forefront in implementing and promoting emerging technologies. We have cultivated several technology ecosystems to invite the industries and establish and further expand. And I'm very confident that it is only a matter of time before companies who are focused on quantum technologies, they will also be looking up at the value proposition which Telangana offers. So I would urge upon all the participants who are interested in quantum technologies, after attending today's awareness session, to actually enroll in various training programs. As my colleague Dr. Madhav pointed out in the beginning, there are almost a dozen programs that we want to introduce. And there are, it is a very comprehensive range of programs, from very elementary, very entry-level, beginner-focused programs to more advanced programs. We have the whole range of it, and we have a very strong partnership with QETCI, as Reena ji mentioned in her speech. Telangana, we have also told this in their meetings, in their board meetings, that whatever new initiative that you want to take, consider Telangana as your test bed, so that we are able to showcase more and more POCs, more and more actual deliverables before the larger industry community, before the larger stakeholders community. So my good wishes for a grand success of today's webinar. And as I said, the success will also be determined on how much of enrollment happens in the subsequent training program. So let us continue this engagement and ensure that we deliver high quality skilling programs also in the future. So thanks very much for inviting me. Good wishes to all of you.
Thank you, sir. That was very inspiring. And with this, we would
recording
like to
in progress.
I would like to thank all the participants. Reena ji, you would like to say something? You are on mute.
I would just like to thank JSG that because of the opportunity that we have, he's on the governing board of QETCI also, and the offer that any new initiative that we want to try can be tested in Telangana is going to create a huge impact for the quantum ecosystem in India, and I'm very thankful for that. I just wanted to express that.
That's very nice to hear from you, Reena ji. I think we will have to put up collective efforts in fomenting this quantum ecosystem in India. Everybody has to participate, because in India we have isolated efforts of quantum exploration, and I hope QECTI will bring all the forces together, and we will be having unitary action and a road path for ourselves. Thank you so much. And I would like to thank our Honorable Principal Secretary for for accepting to be the chief guest and delivering an inspiring address. And I would like to thank Reena for her participation, and also thank her for her future endeavors in supporting this program. Srikanth, thank you very much. And we look forward to you in the state to cultivate more and more programs, follow-up programs on this quantum awareness program. And I thank all the contributors from IIIT, from University of Hyderabad, IIT Hyderabad, and BITS Pilani Hyderabad. And I also thank all the corporate partners for participating in this program. And I hope our relationship continues into real, intense skill programs to be taken up at the end of task. And I thank all the faculty members and student community and other stakeholder groups whoever have participated in this program. And I wish every participant is going to be hooked up to this 10 days program and get benefited with this 10 days program, get inspired with these programs, and will continue probably in the quantum phenomena itself for their career growth. Thank you so much, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the session will be followed by Reenaji's session on why quantum computing at 12 o'clock. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Since we had announced that session will be at 12, do you want to, should we start or just wait? I will try and set up my screen and, start a little 5 minutes later so that it's closer to the time, since some people may be joining in at that time.
Okay. So the program, let's start it to 11:55 instead of 12?
Yes.
Okay. So here is the announcement that the next program, the Why Quantum Computing session by Reenaji, will start at 11:55. Please, all the participants, be back at 11:55 to get benefited of our lecture. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And please enable screen sharing so that I can share my PPT.
Thanks, Madhav. Thanks, Reenaji. I will join in later.
I'll just do some testing, make sure my presentation is up.
11:55, by 11:55, everything will be ready on your desktop. Thank you.
Sure.
Satish, I think participant screen sharing has to be enabled by the host.
Ma'am, I'll get it enabled, ma'am. It will be done by.
జనరల్ నాలెడ్జ్ లో మన విజ్ఞానాన్ని మరింత పెంచేందుకు టీసాట్ ప్రత్యేక కార్యక్రమం చేపట్టింది. పలు అంశాలపై మనకున్న తెలివితేటల్ని పరీక్షించుకోవడం, తెలియని అంశాలపై అవగాహన పెంచుకునేందుకు ఈ కార్యక్రమం రూపకల్పన చేసింది. ఈ ప్రత్యేక క్విజ్ కార్యక్రమంలో మీరు పాల్గొనాలనుకుంటున్నారా? మీ విజ్ఞానాన్ని మా ద్వారా ప్రపంచానికి పంచాలనుకుంటున్నారా? అయితే మీ ప్రశ్నలు మరియు ఆప్షన్స్ మా టీసాట్ ఛానల్ పై నేరుగా సంధించండి లేదా ఈమెయిల్ కు పంపించగలరు. ఫస్ట్ క్వశ్చన్ ఆన్ యువర్ స్క్రీన్. Which among the following temperature scale is based upon absolute zero? Option A, Celsius. Option B, Fahrenheit. Option C, Kelvin. Option D, Rankine. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option C, Kelvin. Any temperature scale having absolute zero for its 0 point is termed as absolute temperature scale or thermodynamic scale. In the International System of Units, the Kelvin scale is the standard for all scientific temperature measurements. Second question on your screen. Indian Army has developed which mobile app for soldiers to track promotions and postings? Option A, Soldier app. Option B, Hamraz app. Option C, Army Cloud app. Option D, Track Post app. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option B, Hamraz app. The Indian Army has developed a mobile application, Hamraz, through which serving soldiers can track details like postings and promotions. Through the Hamraz app, soldiers can also view their monthly salary slips and the Form 16 and also download them. Third question on your screen. Yellow revolution is related to which crop production? Option A, pulses. Option B, oil seeds. Option C, sunflower. Option D, honey. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option B, oil seeds. The revolution launched in 1986-87 to increase the production of edible oil, especially mustard and sesame seeds, to achieve self-reliance is known as the Yellow Revolution. Sam Pitroda is known as the father of the Yellow Revolution in India. Fourth question on your screen. Which city is known as the coal capital of India? Option A, Ranchi. Option B, Dhanbad. Option C, Bokaro. Option D, Zaria. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option B, Dhanbad. Dhanbad has some of the largest coal mines in India and is called the coal capital of India. The city is surrounded by 112 coal mines with a total production of 27.5 million tons. Fifth question on your screen. Where is the headquarters of East Central Railways located? Option A, Kolkata. Option B, Bilaspur. Option C, Allahabad. Option D, Hazipur. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option D, Hazipur. Hazipur is the headquarters and largest city of Vaishali district of the state of Bihar in India. Hazipur is the 16th most populous city of Bihar, besides being the second fastest developing city next to Patna. Sixth question on your screen. Statue of Equality at Hyderabad features which Bhakti saint? Option A, Ramanujacharya. Option B, Vallabhacharya. Option C, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Option D, Madhavacharya. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option A, Ramanujacharya. The Statue of Equality, also referred to as the Ramanuja statue, is a statue of the 11th century Vaishnavite Ramanuja located on the premises of Chinnajiya Trust at Muchintal, Hyderabad. It is the second tallest sitting statue in the world. Seventh question on your screen. In which year nationalization of SBI subsidiaries took place? Option A, 1950. Option B, 1955. Option C, 1959. Option D, 1965. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option C, 1959. In 1959, State Bank of India Act was passed. As per the Act, 7 subsidiary banks of the State Bank of India were nationalized as a major process of nationalization. Eighth question on your screen. Which noble gas is used in radiotherapy? Option A, neon. Option B, argon. Option C, radon. Option D, xenon. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option C, radon. Radon is a colorless and odorless gas. It is chemically inert but radioactive. Radon decays into radioactive polonium and alpha particles. This emitted radiation made radon useful in cancer therapy. Ninth question on your screen. The first chairperson of the National Green Tribunal was option A, Justice A.S. Naidu. Option B, Justice Lokeshwar Singh Panta. Option C, Justice Markande Kajju. Option D, Justice A.K. Ganguly. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option B, Justice Lokeshwar Singh Panta. The chairperson of the NGT is a retired judge of the Supreme Court headquartered in New Delhi. On 18th October 2010, Justice Lokeshwar Singh Panta became its first chairman. Last and final question. 10th question on your screen. Who is the winner of the 2021 International Booker Prize? Option A, David Diop. Option B, Douglas Stewart. Option C, Margaret Atwood. Option D, Bernardine Evaristo. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option A, David Diop. David Diop is a French novelist and academic who specializes in 18th century French and Francophone African literature. The International Booker Prize is an international literary award hosted in the United Kingdom. The introduction of the International Prize to complement the Man Booker Prize was announced in June 2004. మీ సమాధానాలను మరియు మీ అభిప్రాయాలను కామెంట్స్ రూపంలో తెలియజేయండి. మీరు టీసాట్ నుంచి ఎటువంటి కార్యక్రమాలను వీక్షించాలని అనుకుంటున్నారో ఈ క్రింది వాట్సాప్ నంబర్ ద్వారా మీ సందేశాలను పంచుకోగలరు. వాట్సాప్ నంబర్ 7337558051. First question on your screen. How many countries are members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in 2022? Option A, 18 member states. Option B, 16 member states. Option C, 30 member states. Option D, 49 member states. Your time starts now. The correct answer is option C, 30 member states.
I am I'm the chair for the Quantum Ecosystems and Technology Council of India. QETCI is attempting to ensure that we are accelerating the quantum ecosystem in India. And, I'm very happy to be part of this awareness program. Today, I'm going to be talking about why is quantum important? And I will set the context for why quantum by going through what is quantum, what are the various streams of quantum technologies, and what is the significance of each of these streams, what are the industry applications and the nature of impact from these industry applications that are relevant from a quantum perspective. I will deep dive into a few use cases of quantum at a very high level. When I say deep dive, I'm not going to go into the details of the algorithm, but I will talk about these use cases in order to bring out the impact that these kind of use cases are going to create for very, very specific scenarios. I will be talking about projecting the quantum future. We have reached a certain state today in the quantum science and technology area, and what does the future projection of that look like? And then we will discuss this very important topic of the state of the quantum ecosystem. Where are we today worldwide, and where are we in India, and how are things going to progress? So these are the topics that I will be covering. Now, if we want to understand what is quantum, we have to understand the history of computing. Now, if you look at the history of computing itself, that is pretty old, right? As far back as 2400 BC, we have, something called an abacus was invented. An abacus allows you to do mathematical calculations in a much faster way than you would ordinarily be able to do that in your head, right? So I think in some senses, that was the first machine that enabled calculation. And as we have moved forward, we had, the advent of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg in 1439. And that was a significant impact from a technology perspective, because it made easy to write down anything that needed to be learned by other people on paper, and other people could actually read it. So books were invented, and in a manner which was, where books could be reproduced in a faster way, and more people could benefit from one person writing that, and multiple copies could be made in a much faster way. Then, as we know that Blaise Pascal, who created the Pascal's calculator, and then of course Charles Babbage, who created the difference machine, right? And that was considered the first blueprint of what would evolve to become classical computers as we know them today. Now, as we look at the progress that humankind has made over this, over the centuries, it is also important to understand that the entire premise of computing today resides on the semiconductor technology that we have. So if you look at, and what is computing? Computing is manipulation of information so that that information can be transformed, it can be morphed, it can be measured in different formats for people to take advantage of computational capacity of a machine. And the reason why it is important is because these machines, these computing machines as we know them, they are able to do some of these calculations, transformations, mutations, etc. of the data and information that is presented to them at a speed which the human brain cannot do. And then, you know, then with the advent of collaboration between machines, the parallelism aspects that comes in, and the network aspects that comes in, the whole sharing of information becomes a lot more useful when we look at these computational machines. Now, I already said that the entire classical computing paradigm, as we know it today, whether we are talking about a handheld, machine, which is your phone, or your laptop, or your desktop, or the supercomputer that is sitting in a high security lab, I think all of these machines, they are based on semiconductor technology. They are based on the fact that we have taken a certain physical attribute of how electrons move when a potential is applied to them inside a certain circuit, and used that to represent two values of information: a bit, which can have a value of 1, or a 0, depending on the potential or the current that the electron is reflecting at that time. And there are gates within the circuit which are actually manipulating these bits or the values of 0 and 1 to create certain transformations, and everything else is built on top of that premise, right? Now, since this is all based on semiconductor technology and computing has been evolving as per Moore's law. Every few years, the number of transistors that are that can be put on a silicon chip have reduced by half, and therefore creating more capacity in the same space. This has also led to miniaturization of circuits, and hence, you know, we used to have massive machines, mainframe systems a few decades ago, and now we have very small IoT devices which are capable of doing a lot more calculation, and our phone that we carry in our hand, which is, you know, has more capacity than the original mainframe computers that were designed, right? So that is how technology has progressed. Now, where do we stand today? Today, we stand at a space where, you know, the chip size has already become very small. And we are looking at, you know, we've talked about different kinds of technologies. And in the last decade, you know, we moved to, you know, 10 nanometer technology, 5 nanometer technology. And recently, TSMC a few months ago announced that they have had some breakthrough in 1 nanometer technology, which will become commercially available at some point in time. Now, the question that people in this business are asking is that even the movement from 10 nanometer to 1 nanometer has taken a lot of effort, because at those scales and those sizes, there's a lot of noise and heating considerations that come into the chip. And therefore, the movement has taken a lot more research than it had taken in the prior instances of miniaturization of technology. Now, and the other question is, if we go any smaller than this, then something called the quantum effects in the circuit start coming into play, because we start approaching quantum distances. So the question is, where are we headed from here? From a classical computing perspective, we've reached a certain stage. We can create three-dimensional circuits, and we can gain some more, computational capacity. We can, parallelize some of these compute so that we get more compute capacity. But what later? What will happen? Which is this next generation of technology which is going to support the kind of computational capacity that we require, and how do we progress further? So this is a problem that people scientists in the industry and the academia have been aware of for some time. And they have been focusing their energy and their research on several different technologies. There is a lot of research happening on neuromorphic computing, which is an attempt to mimic the way the human brain does calculations and see how that can be applied to a machine. Molecular electronics and chemical computers, which is actually looking at chemical reactions as a basis for computing. Quantum computing, which we will talk about, this whole session is about quantum computing, so we will talk about in detail. DNA-based computing, which is, how do you introduce mutations in the DNA and see how those transformations happen. Now, DNA computing has been found to be very useful for long-term storage. It is, however, not so great for computing, but all of these efforts have yielded different kinds of interesting results. Artificial organic brain or wet computing, where there is an attempt to take biological systems and semiconductor systems and sort of try and create some mixed systems and see how they are going to work better, and so on. Now, over the last decade or so, it has become very clear to a lot of people in the industry and the academia that quantum computing holds a lot of promise to be the next generational computing platform for this planet. And eventually what has happened is there's a lot of money that has been kept aside and invested in this technology, quantum technology, across the world, as we will see later in some of my slides. So most of the governments are betting on this. They've a huge amount of investments going in this space. A lot of companies have come up in the last decade, who are focusing on quantum computing in some form or the other. So this is why we are focusing on quantum computing, because we have to figure out where our next leap of technology is going to come from. And this is the most promising candidate. So what does this mean for people who are studying? This means that you cannot ignore this area. You have to at least start becoming aware of what quantum computing is and how does it work along with classical computing. And you will get that exposure during this these sessions that are happening for a couple of weeks. And it'll give you an opportunity to take decisions on what kind of electives you want to pick up to start getting more familiar with this technology. Now, at a very basic level, we talked about classical computing having a bit, which is a 0 or a 1, and this concept of a bit being based on, let's say, a potential of associated with a circuit and representing the charge associated with the electron. That's the physical attribution that you give, and then the logical abstraction of the computer is built on top of that, which is where the operating system and the software comes into the picture. Now, when we talk about quantum computing, we look at properties like the spin of an electron or the polarization of a photon. And so, for example, if you take the example of a spin of an electron, if this electron is spinning in a clockwise direction, then we look at the vector which is pointing downwards and we represent it as a value of 1. And if it is anti-clockwise, we represent it as a value of 0, for example. And remember, we are talking about vectors here because that's the quantum physics behind it. I'll not go into the details of all of this. But what is interesting is that the electron could be spinning in multiple directions, as you can see on this picture from the various arrows that are given here. So at any point in time, the probability of the electron spinning in a particular direction is a certain value. And only when the measurement is done on this electron, you either get a clockwise spin or an anti-clockwise spin. That is the measured value. We call it we say that the value of the qubit has collapsed to either 0 or 1. And the intermediate state where all possible spin directions are possible, we call that the superposition state. And at any point in time, the probability of finding the electron spin in a certain direction is what represents the superposition state, right? So I'll go a little deeper into this by talking about what is quantum computing. So because of this complex scenario that we are talking about, we now represent qubits and properties associated with qubits from instead of real numbers, we represent them as complex numbers. If instead of a single state, we are talking about a superposition of states, and that's important to consider. From locality to non-locality. Now there is another principle in quantum computing which is called entanglement. So what this means is that if there are two quantum particles, let's say electrons, which are entangled, then you can separate these particles as far into space as you want, but a change in, let's say, the spin of one of the electrons, which is entangled, will cause a simultaneous change in the spin of the other electron, which is entangled with, which is part of the entangled pair. Now, obviously, we are saying that we're moving from locality to non-locality because locality is about impact of changes in the immediate environment and how they, that's what locality means. But here, a non-local thing is happening, like something which is very far and doesn't seem to be directly connected to some other entity, is changing because of a change which is not happening in the local system per se. And of course, we are talking about probabilistic nature of we are talking about a probabilistic nature because we are saying that the probability of the electron existing in a particular spin state is what we try to use for calculation. So we are no longer looking at deterministic laws, which we are used to in the classical computing paradigm, but we are looking at these probabilistic laws. And since probability introduces an aspect of uncertainty, we are no longer looking at very certain calculations. We're talking about certain best measure solutions that we are, sort of looking at. And at a very core fundamental level, the quantum computing is applying the principles of quantum physics to process information. This is how we've evolved a qubit. Development of quantum computers provides us with performance gains in the billion-fold realm and beyond, and I'll explain that. Using quantum phenomena may allow us to perform computational tasks that are not otherwise possible. And how is this relevant? So for example, when we talk about the superposition states, right? Let's say we want to do a search. In a traditional classical computing based search, what you have to do is to follow one of the various search algorithms and actually search through the entire search database through multiple steps to get the answer. Now, if you want to do that kind of a search in quantum computing, you have something called the Grover's algorithm, which means you can take advantage of this concept of superposition. And you can actually in a smaller number of calculations, you can actually get sift through a very large part of the database because of the fact that at a physical level, the quantum particle is actually existing in almost all simultaneous states at the same time. So taking advantage of that physical phenomena, we are able to reduce the time taken to do a search when using quantum computation. Right, so that allows us to give some performance gains, and then because of this nature of performance gains, we are able to perform certain computational tasks that were not otherwise possible. And I'll explain in my slides as to how this is happening. So we've already looked at it. We've said qubits instead of bits. It's 0, 1, and state of superposition. Qubits can present high value of information. When measurement is done for a calculation, all possible states collapse except one. So all of these states disappear and you get one state. You also, when you do a measurement, you are doing that measurement in the classical world, which means that the states will collapse to either of the classical states, which is 0 and 1. So when the measurement is done, you will always get a 0 or a 1. There is something called no cloning theorem. The state of the quantum system changes with when you observe it. Why? Because observation is equal to measurement. Therefore, if in classical systems, when you do a register copy at the assembly language level for a classical computer, you cannot do something like that for a quantum computer because that is paramount to measurement. So there are different strategies that are evolved in quantum computers to actually measure something while the calculations are happening, right? And of course, entanglement and superposition together give you the quantum advantage. I'm sorry, I somehow got disconnected. It said the meeting has ended. So I'm going to share my screen again. Please enable screen sharing. CSAT team, please enable screen sharing. Now, earlier I talked about how, we get exponential increase in the capacity when we are using qubits. Let's try and understand why that happens. Now, if you look at n bits can store any number between 0 and 2 to the power n. So as you add the number of bits that can be manipulated in a classical computer, you get a growth in the computational capacity equivalent to this 2 to the power n, right? Now, when you look at n qubits, you can store all numbers between, when you look at n qubits, you can store all numbers between 0 and 2 to the power n because of this concept of superposition at the same time. Which means that if you have 1,000 qubit quantum computer, you can actually store, manipulate information equivalent to 10 to the power 301. That's an absolutely gigantic number. It is close to a centillion. And by the way, this number is much larger than the number of stars in the known universe, right? So we're talking about computational capacities that were previously never even possible, that are going to be enabled by quantum computing. And in fact, today we already have 150 plus qubit quantum computers that are available. And there's a promise that, 100 qubit quantum computers coming up in a few months, and 1,000 capacity quantum computers coming up in the next few years. So I think this is a reality of how computational paradigms are going to be completely transformed. Now, if you want to look at various streams of quantum, we should look at the fact that it's not just about computing. There is, of course, this scalable quantum computer, but we also have something called quantum communications. If you are doing calculations in qubits, how do these qubit and its related information transfer across the world? So is the internet going to be in the future classical or quantum or a mixture of both? It probably is going to be a mixture of both, but this entire stream of quantum communications is trying to establish all the hardware and the software infrastructure that will be required to make a quantum internet happen. Then a scalable quantum computer, of course, then quantum annealers or specific hardware. So today in the classical space, we have application-specific integrated circuits, right? Which are small chips which are designed for very specific purposes. They are not they're not like a full-fledged computer. Similarly, today in quantum, if you look at D-Wave as a company, they have these hardware annealers, which are very specific hardware, which is, quantum hardware, which is designed to solve very specific optimization related problems. So there is a lot of progress happening in that space. Quantum sensors, which provide additional capacity to, better sensing capacities, etc. So that's a very interesting field that is coming up. It already has a lot of applications that are being used worldwide. Where are we? I mean, in November last year, a 127 qubit computer was announced by IBM, and they have made some promises of this multiplying many-fold by the year 2023, right? So that's what we have right now. A lot of progress. in the last decade, as you can see from this chart. Quantum communications, where are we? There are a lot of government-led collaborative programs
Recording in
around the world
progress.
that have been initiated. So, for example, quantum encryption and science satellite program from Canada. There's one running in China, one in India, which is part of the Quest program, the European program and the UK program, and Australia, Belgium, all of them, are part of a federated quantum system being run by a private entity called ARCIT, where UK, USA, Japan, Canada, Italy, Belgium, and Austria are participating for a quantum integrated network for secure communication between these countries. So a lot of these programs are happening. India has made rapid progress in this space. The Indian Space Research Organization, as well as the Raman Research Institute, have come up with both satellite-based communication, over-the-air communication, and India also has, one of the companies that is going to be represented in this awareness session is QNU Labs. So they have a QKD solution, which is in the area of quantum communications. So I think this is an interesting area for us. The hardware worldview. Now, the interesting thing is that at the hardware level, the approach that is being taken for getting a scalable quantum computer is not identical. There are many different hardware technologies based on different physical phenomena that are being pursued. So, for example, there are focus on photonics-based quantum computers, superconducting qubits, trapped ion circuits, spin quantum dot, or faults in diamonds called NV centers, or a topological qubit. So Microsoft is focusing on a topological qubit. Photonics-based solutions are supposed to be very, very interesting. All of these solutions, if you look at them, some of them actually work at cryogenic temperatures, that is, especially the semiconductor-based solutions, where the entire system has to be cooled down to very close to absolute zero, so that external noise can be eliminated and the quantum processes can work in a less noisy environment, and you can get stable qubits. But now there are promising room temperature solutions that are also there, especially the NV diamond center solution and some of the photonic solutions and the trapped ion circuits as well. So all of these are pretty promising technologies. Today, nobody knows which one of this will have the biggest breakthrough. So where will the scalable quantum computer really come from, where the growth becomes exponential? So what is happening to address this? What is happening is that the software worldview that is getting created, all these companies that are working on software solutions are now trying to ensure that not only do they work on specific hardware, they enable a lot of these software platforms on multiple hardware. So if you look at Microsoft and AWS, for example, there the Azure Quantum and the AWS bracket solutions, they provide access to multiple quantum hardware on their cloud stack. And also there are companies like StrangeWorks and Classic Technologies who are trying to be completely hardware agnostic. So they are not focusing on hardware at all. They are creating a software which works with any potential hardware, and they're creating those partnerships with multiple hardware vendors to ensure that the top layer of the stack remains very, very transparently conforming to whatever people have bought into from the end user industry perspective. They can build solutions on top of that. Classic Technologies has a unique, they are focusing on creating these, allowing people to create quantum circuits and then translating that into code, right? So again, this is supposed to be hardware agnostic. So this is where where a lot of progress is happening. These are some sample stacks. I'll not go through them because you will get exposure to some of the software aspects during the awareness sessions. Now, another interesting area which is important to note is called post-quantum security. So if you look at today, most of the cryptography, most of the security is based on the fact that RSA 2048 bit cannot be broken by a classical computer, and hence it is considered, today's encryption solutions are considered pretty foolproof. That, and then there are certain hash algorithms that are used, right? Now, what happens is that because of the exponential computational power that becomes available to us with a scalable quantum computer, RSA 2048 is likely to get broken, which means by something called the Shor's algorithm, which means that, you know, organizations and people worldwide, governments have to all start thinking about how do they prepare their infrastructure, their software, their hardware, the networks, everything to be secure in the post-quantum era. So this concept of post-quantum security becomes very important. This is also an opportunity for a lot of people who are looking at a career in the cybersecurity space to generally start nudging themselves towards understanding what is happening in quantum security. And in the future, you will have people who will be cybersecurity experts working both on the classical side as well as the quantum side. So that's the career path for those people. And therefore, this is a very important subject. It's a very important topic for India because I foresee that a lot of the jobs in the IT security, IT services sector are going to be in the area of post-quantum security. Now, there are two approaches here. One is QKD, which is at the hardware level, and you will hear about it in the QNU Labs presentation. And then the future, and of course, there are several new algorithms which are supposed to be quantum proof. And these algorithms are being discussed at the international level so that some standards can be established worldwide for different companies and governments and organizations to follow. So there's a lot happening in this space. We talked about quantum annealers. Most of these quantum annealers, you know, the most well-known company working in this space is D-Wave. And in fact, a lot of researchers in India today use D-Wave annealers for, you know, experimenting on some of the problems. And these are typically used for solving the lowest minima problem. If you're in computer science, you know what I'm talking about. And basically, in easy language, it is to solve any optimization problem, which is you know, where you can get better performance when you use quantum systems. Quantum sensors. Now, different kind of sensors are getting impacted by quantum technology. These are geosensors, medical sensors for medical diagnostics, navigation sensors, materials related sensing, civil engineering or infrastructure projects. And then, of course, network synchronization sensors, where, you know, these are used for time synchronization across networks. So there's a huge opportunity here. There's also an opportunity for a lot of students to do more deeper work in this space and then start their own startups along with other people, because this is a technology where, at least from a QETCI perspective, we will be focusing on a lot on enabling the startups in the future, along with the support of local governments like the Telangana government here. Industry applications. So what kind of problems can you solve with quantum? A whole lot of them, right? We talked about quantum security, but then you also look at the impact that quantum can have. Literally every sector, every industry sector is going to be impacted. A very good example is, if you look at protein folding, it is an NP-hard problem, which means it's a certain classification of the problem which can be solved by current classical algorithms. Especially for large proteins, right? Using quantum computing, researchers have already been able to simulate, things like a 10 amino acid angiotensin peptide with 22 qubits. And as you increase the number of qubits, you can simulate much bigger proteins. And, that is very, very useful for understanding a lot of issues associated with the medical space. Because you can represent, you are able to simulate molecules which are much larger in size, and from a chemical, you can understand chemical reactions much better. Quantum chemistry, therefore, has evolved as a separate discipline in a very, very strong manner, because that's where a lot of the use cases are emerging for quantum. These use cases originate from quantum chemistry because of the ability to simulate molecules, but then they go ahead and impact very different kinds of industries, whether it is the material industry or the agriculture industry, or we're talking about the pharmaceutical industry and so on. So I think it's important to understand that quantum chemistry by itself is also a very distinctly strong subject, and it is becoming more and more important as we move forward. Now I'm going to talk about specific examples. So for example, we all, agriculture is so important for India. So let's take an agriculture related example. If you look at the soil, right, the soil needs to be extremely rich in nitrogen for the crops to survive. And every time we grow crops, the nitrogen is depleted in the soil. Now, a lot of organic material in the soil is broken up by bacteria in the soil into nitrogen. And this is called nitrogen fixation, which happens naturally through nature. Now, at a very chemical level, what happens is that there is something called a nitrogenase, which acts as a catalyst and converts nitrogen into ammonia for the breakdown of some of the organic matter. And this requires, if you want to simulate a nitrogenase molecule, you need 10 to the power 32 bits of classical storage. Now, given the formula that I gave you earlier, that you can store much larger information, smaller number of qubits, it becomes a lot simpler to simulate a nitrogenase molecule on a quantum computer, right? And if you can simulate the molecule, then you can study the chemical reactions, and then you can mimic some of the things that are happening, right? So in nature, for example, you can try experiments around that. Now, today, the current fertilizer manufacturing process uses something known as the Haber-Bosch process, which is only 61% efficient, which means only 61% of the energy that is put into this reaction is useful, and the rest goes waste. And it requires 450 degrees centigrade temperature and 200 atmospheric pressure. That's where the energy wastage is coming in, right? And then, of course, there are byproducts out of this process which are not very useful. Some of them may be harmful. Now, compare this to how nitrogen fixation happens in the soil and with 100% efficiency. So what is the promise here? We are now talking about simulating this molecule with just 108 qubits. We already have a 127 qubit computer, quantum computer, and our capacity to now understand these reactions that are happening in nature in a better manner so that we can simulate them with better efficiency, lesser harmful byproducts, and create a much more sustainable environment as we work with these processes. So there's a huge promise here in terms of, this is just one example. Drug discovery, similar things, there are at least 14 to 20, because the last count was 14 when I checked. I haven't checked for the last several months. So I'm suspecting there are more than 20 startups which are working on some aspect of drug discovery using quantum. So this is a promise in the drug discovery space in terms of how the duration in which we discover the right molecule for the drug can be brought down. And that promise is driving a lot of companies, a lot of startups in this space. Finding what's underground. So quantum gravity gradiometer. So a recent discovery that tunnel 1 meter below the ground detected using quantum science. So there was a news about this. And what this means is that reduced costs and delays to construction, rail, and road projects, and improved prediction of natural phenomena such as volcanic eruptions, because then you can sense a lot of what is happening underground in a much finer manner with higher accuracy, efficiency, lesser confusion in terms of what the possibilities could be. And archaeological excavations could become much better. So a lot of promise just from the sensors themselves. Of course, algorithms, all of this computational paradigm is based on certain very specific algorithms which manipulate, which act as transformations on quantum information on qubits. And there is somebody who will be covering this, but I just wanted to talk about from a completeness perspective that we are talking about all these things, talking about how these use cases are going to be worked upon. I wanted to emphasize that when you actually get down to coding, there are certain quantum algorithms that are used for doing all these calculations, transformations, and so on. Now let's look at projecting the quantum future. This is where we are from a scalable quantum computer perspective. And IBM projects 1,000 qubit computer by 2023. Even if it is not 2023, in the next few years, we will have 1,000 qubit computer. And we already checked that the 1,000 qubit quantum computers' capacity is going to be very, very high. Now, what will happen in the future? So if you look at all of these things that are happening right now, we have artificial intelligence, AI systems, which have reached a plateau again, right? There have been 2 rounds of development in the history of artificial intelligence. Around a century ago, there was a lot of interest in artificial intelligence, but we did not have the computational capacity to actually really benefit from the concept. And therefore, after initial hype, this technology more or less took a back seat. It's only in the last couple of decades that there were murmurs that started, and in the last 15 years or so, there has been a huge amount of advancement in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how this applies to different industries, different kind of solutions, and so on. That has happened because we have been able to take advantage of the massive growth in computational capacity on the classical computing side. Now, once again, some of these deep learning systems are already using huge amount of computational capacity. They're doing remarkable things, but then there seems to be another plateau in sight. With quantum computing, there is an opportunity to take artificial intelligence to the next level by something called quantum machine learning, right? So this area is likely to again work, see another growth. So we are talking about growth in quantum and how quantum computing is, growing. But this growth is also going to kickstart another growth in the artificial intelligence space. That's very important to understand. When we look at, gene code, the human gene code and the genetic analysis, it requires huge computational power. Today, we do not have the capacity with classical computers to really analyze every aspect of the genome and, sort of look at preventive mechanisms for preventing any problems were happening, or fixing certain problems that occur, some of the diseases that are genetic in nature, and even things like as people grow old, Alzheimer's and things like that. So but with the capacity that will be enabled by quantum computer, there is a possibility of completely revamping that space, and what would and it's mind-boggling to think what it would mean for the human healthcare industry in terms of how and longevity as well. So I think that's very interesting and exciting. Smart buildings, because of the advancements in sensors, we can now look at smart buildings which are almost going to be intuitive in nature, right? I mean, smart sensors are already changing the way buildings are being designed, but with the next generation sensors coming in, your buildings are going to, almost, if you see some science fiction movies, it's going to be like that, right? I mean, so there's a lot of possibility there. Understanding the human brain. Today, modeling a small portion of the brain, a few thousand neurons, and the interaction between them takes massive amount of computational infrastructure. However, the promise of quantum computing is that with the advanced capacity that is going to be available, it is likely that we are going to make much more progress in our understanding of the human brain. And if we can understand how the human brain works, it is going to create a virtuous feedback cycle. The more we understand how the human brain works, the more we will have the capacity to create better computational systems, and so on. So it's going to accelerate everything computational in a much fast forward way. And of course, some of this will help in deep space exploration and space travel as well. Now let's look at the state of the quantum ecosystem. First of all, before we talk about the state of the quantum ecosystem, we have to understand what is the ecosystem, right? So typically when we look at any new technology or science area which is evolving, which is quantum in this case, there are multiple players who play a role in the ecosystem. Who are these? So one is, of course, if the technology is complex, if the investments required are huge, which is the case for quantum, then the government actually plays a very strong role. Why is that? Because industry and market are driven by immediate returns. whereas the capacity to make long-term investments for the benefit of the industry or society is taken care of by government. So today, if you look at the quantum computing space or the quantum technology space, you will see that $1 billion worth of investments are coming in quantum by several nations. In fact, India had also announced in the 2020 budget that India is going to invest close to $1.1 billion USD in the area of quantum, and there are already certain programs that are running from a research perspective called Quest, where a lot of focus has been on quantum related research and building the ecosystem and so on. Then there are research institutes where fundamental research happens, right? So institutes like Raman Research Institute, Indian Institute of Science, IIT Hyderabad, Triple IT Hyderabad, IIT Roorkee, all of these places, they're all, sort of places where research is happening in the quantum space, and what does it, they become important ecosystem players. Industry bodies, which will, try and bring the industry viewpoint or the ecosystem together. QETCI is not really just an industry body because we work with the government and the academia as well, but we are sort of that ecosystem player, so to say. Startups, any new technology, there are large companies which will invest in it, but what about fresh ideas? What about looking at breakthroughs and looking at people who are willing to take risk in a completely different direction? That always comes from the startup ecosystem. So they become very, very important players. Of course, customers, people who want to utilize the power of quantum computing, and large corporates. So these are one part of the ecosystem. Now, in order for this ecosystem, there are, to work together, there are certain areas which need to, these are conceptual areas which need to grow. One is skills. You need to have people with the right skills for any of this to happen, which is why this program is so interesting. And it is the first step in the skill development process. So it's important that people attend it, take advantage of something that is coming really free to them, give them guidance on to, what are the possible options that may be there, for further studies, or, if these are faculty members, then they, sort of look at how skill development can happen within their institute, what new courses need to be floated, and so on. Research, if you look at the quantum technology space, I talked about so many things. I talked about computing, communications, we talked about sensors, we talked about security, machine learning. So there is a whole gamut of areas that is there. Now, for each of these areas, there are multiple aspects of research that are required to make something happen. So how does the research intensify in certain areas? How does research start in areas where we are not doing research? Because it is going to be an important element of enabling something in the ecosystem. And those are the kind of questions that become relevant. I think this is very relevant for educational institutes and research institutes to consider. One of the things that is not recommended is that, quantum communication, there are 10 institutes already working on quantum communication. Maybe I can be the 11th one to do that. That doesn't help India in any way. And neither does it help your students, because then you're creating skill in the same space of where you have a much larger opportunity. Why not look at quantum security? Why not look at, let's say, a certain aspect of quantum computing, right? Maybe it could be at the software level. Or if there is strength in hardware, why not look at quantum sensors and quantum hardware and so on? So I think that's how the whole ecosystem needs to start looking at. And then, of course, international customer base or the local customer base. If you have more startups coming in, where is the customer base? How do we enable the customer base? So there is a need today, and we are working on that, is how do you get the customer base excited about quantum? How do we help them understand? How do we drive awareness with them? Now, this awareness requirement will be there for a lot of time. So there is not only a need for people who can work on the hardware, software side, there is also need for more people who can be these people who may come from a traditional engineering background and maybe add an MBA and have, in the engineering background, they actually take up some courses on quantum so that they can become these spokespeople, they can become these business development people, they can become these people who work on solutions for the end customers. So, yeah, we have to really think innovatively about where the opportunities are going to emerge. We have to understand where the opportunities are going to emerge and innovatively think about how to create that stream of skills in that space. Of course, market readiness, which is linked to the customer base. And so this is the whole ecosystem that we're talking about. Just doing a time check here. So essentially, today, this is an interesting snapshot which talks about where the various companies fit in, but nothing new information, no new information here. One important thing that I wanted to talk about, we talked about industry bodies, and one of the things that some of the industry bodies are also standard bodies, right? And standards play a very, very important role in how a technology becomes mainstream in the ecosystem. So for example, especially on the communication side, you cannot really have any new communication paradigm unless we know that everybody understands that this is the standard for communication. This is how information will be exchanged across the networks, and these are the layers of the network that will be relevant. So standardization plays a very important role. In the case of a new technology like quantum, especially on the computing side, as well as the communication side, actually today there are also standards being set on the terminology so that everybody speaks the same language and everybody understands that when somebody is writing something on quantum, this is what it means. And when they're making a claim that, my machine is this good, or so how do you do performance benchmarking across different machines? So a lot of work has started or is already happening in this space. So there's a working group 14 for quantum computing as part of ISO IEC JTC1, that is just the classification for a group that is focusing on this. One is focused on terminology and vocabulary. One is an ITU is also participating and leading one of the standards which is focused on next generation networks. ITU is the International Telecommunications Union, in case you didn't know that. And then of course, cloud computing and distribution platforms, they're also focusing on how quantum is going to fit into that. Then of course, IEEE has several standards. I'm an IEEE member, I'm a senior member of IEEE, and I'm also on the quantum initiative, a technical committee for the quantum initiative worldwide. And I think it's important to understand that IEEE has various standards related work that is already happening. So reason I'm especially pointing this out is most colleges in India, they have a student membership of IEEE. So if you are in a college which is IEEE student membership and you are a student member, you have an opportunity to actually, and if you're interested in the topic, you can dig deeper into this subject through your IEEE membership. And these standards are focused on software-defined quantum communication, standards for quantum computing definitions, and of course for performance metrics and performance benchmarking. So that apples and apples can be compared together instead of apples and oranges, right? I mean, people can sell their hardware in very different manners. I'll not go into the details of that. And it becomes difficult for the end user to really understand which is the better quantum computer at the end of the day, and especially for their own system. So this is where we are. Now, other emerging considerations, we talked about quantum AI and machine learning, right? In terms of how that can get accelerated. AI and machine learning can get accelerated because of quantum computing and some of the algorithms that could be brought in to work along with the AI systems. The other areas are quantum biology and sensors using quantum radars, and then of course quantum camouflage. So I found that very interesting, so I mentioned it here. It's not a large area by itself, but it's an interesting area. Quantum biology is interesting because it touches upon biological processes and the quantumness in them, and being able to understand that to create better quality sensors, better quality compute, maybe solve the problem of noisy systems in quantum by understanding how nature handles it, and so on. It's a very vast topic, very difficult for me to cover here, given where we are with respect to time. But I have actually interviewed Dr. Clarice D. Ailo as part of the podcast that I run. The full session is dedicated to quantum biology. So if you can just search for my name and my podcast, you'll be able to find that. And that's a good exposure to a topic, which is very new and evolving. Not many countries have invested in this space, but I see this as a very promising area for the future. Now, this is the kind of investment that has gone in from the governments worldwide. So this is, or it has been either, maybe gone in is the wrong word to use. What it means is that this is the amount committed at some point in time by these entities. And there's a huge amount of investment that is going in, as you can see, and the governments have a very major role to play in this space. Standardization efforts we've already talked about, and that brings us to the end of today's discussion. I'm very happy to answer any questions. If anybody has later, please do reach out, and I'm sure through TSAT, please reach out on any of the channels, and I'll sort of compile all those questions and try and answer them at a later date. Thank you very much. Over to you, Madhav or Shrikant.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Session is done. We have still 5 minutes left. We started 5 minutes earlier, so it was exactly 1 hour.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for your time, and your presentation was really very thoughtful, ma'am. And apart from it, it was very informative for the students also.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, ma'am.
You disconnect, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Priyanka Garu. Priyanka Garu, I hope we can end the live session. Call you up, Priyanka.
తెలంగాణ యువతకు టీశాట్ మరో అద్భుత అవకాశాన్ని